All right, I think we're ready to start the webinar. Before I hand it off to Alejandrina Baldwin, who will be doing the presentation, I wanted to make a couple announcements. So all of the attendees' mics are muted throughout this webinar. And if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A feature. And we will either be answering those questions directly through the Q&A box, or one of the presenters will be answering it during the presentation. All right, so I am going to hand it over to Alejandrina.
Hi, Iris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for going on this little bit of a roller coaster ride this morning. I just want to start off by saying thank you, everybody, and for your patience. This workshop was originally scheduled to be conducted in person. It was going to be in the East LA Public Library, but because of everything that's happening, we decided to not cancel this workshop and continue to hold it in this online format. And so thank you for continuing to join us, and thank you for all the new participants who are also watching us. It was pretty amazing. We went from 25 participants that were signed up for about 2-3 weeks to now we have 180 that signed up to view us. So this is very exciting to be able to have a bigger reach. So thank you very much for that. We initially thought that Zoom was going to be a good platform. We hope it is today to be able to conduct this, but we had a limit of participants that could join us through Zoom. And so many of you are watching this through Facebook Live. We understand you may not be able to participate in the same way, but we're hoping to be able to help with that. And so what we're doing is we have our intern who just started on Monday, Irene Farr, and she is logged on to Facebook and logged on to Zoom. And so she'll be looking out for any questions that kind of come up and try to shoot them to me through Zoom. And then hopefully I can respond to them. We're going to try to respond to all questions that come in today. If I am not able to get to them, we'll go ahead and follow up with you. Please send us an email with any comments or questions at our climate@planning.lacounty.gov website, and we could go ahead and answer them that way as well. Also, for the participants who are following us on Facebook Live, we have a link for a Survey Monkey that you could follow along and answer some of the questions that we have in the Zoom webinar as well. At the end of all this, we'll go ahead and take the survey results from the Survey Monkey and the ones from the webinars. We'll put them together and we'll go ahead and advertise them so everybody could take a look at what everybody thinks. And so lastly, I just wanted to, let me start our presentation. And I wanted to start by saying that today's presentation is on the discussion draft for the LA County Climate Action Plan. This is a discussion draft. This is our first draft. It was just released on March 5th. And we've extended the comment period to April 30th. To allow additional time. And again, we're available, through email. I could give you a phone call if you want to further discuss anything from this project. And so with that, I'll kind of just start. And so thank you again for joining us. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box and we'll go ahead and get to that. And so here we go. And so we are from the Department of Regional Planning. I am from the Department of Regional Planning. I'm a principal planner for regional planning. And what we do is we plan for all the unincorporated areas of LA County. And so LA County is a very big, broad region. It's separated into 5 supervisorial districts, as you can see in the map. Within LA County, we have 88 incorporated cities. Cities that are their own jurisdiction, they have their own planning department. If they don't, they contract their services out to other planners to do plan checks and such. But all the areas in between that are white on the map, those are all unincorporated, that are yellow All the areas that are yellow on the map are the unincorporated areas of LA County. So the Department of Regional Planning plans for these areas. Some of these areas include some of our most iconic LA County communities, such as the Santa Monica Mountains, the East LA neighborhood, Hacienda and Roland Heights, and also a big chunk of LA County, which is in our North County. Many of our rural county communities are out there as well. And so today I'm going to present to you the discussion draft that's called the Los Angeles County Climate Action Plan. And this plan is updating our existing climate action plan. Sorry about that. But before we go on, we want to take a little survey and kind of find out where everybody is joining us from. So for the Zoom viewers, we're going to have a little screen that pops up, and you could go ahead and you could click on one of the options. If you're watching this through Facebook Live, if you could please go to the SurveyMonkey link and answer the question. You could go one by one, or you could do the entire survey at once. And so everybody go ahead and click your answer. I'll do mine. Oh, I can't vote as a panelist. So, all right. And then we'll just give it a little time, and we'll find out where our Zoom viewers are joining us from today. I know I saw on our list that we have a lot of different participants, not only from LA County, but we have some people from outside of LA County and maybe even outside of California. So, all right. So mostly from the city of LA. I mean, not city, but in a city within LA County. So thank you everybody who's joining us. Even though this plan, I want to mention, even though this plan is really targeted towards the areas and the community activities that happen within the unincorporated areas of the county, this is very much a programmatic climate action plan, and it's looking at the big picture of our region. And so it is very important to also consider all of our cities around us. Many of us live, work, play, maybe not right now, but most of our lives in and out of unincorporated areas as well. And so I wanted to mention that the GHG emissions that we're talking about today, they do consider people who are living and working and kind of conducting business within unincorporated area counties. And so it does matter even if you're not within an unincorporated area community, for you to participate with us. And so thank you for joining us. And so we do have a current climate action plan. Our current climate action plan is called the Community Climate Action Plan. And it was adopted in 2015. And it was adopted in 2015 as part of our general plan. We updated our general plan in 2015. It's called the 2035 General Plan because it has a horizon year to 2035. And so at the time when we were creating our general plan, there was a need for us to mitigate for all the greenhouse gas emissions that would come out from the build out of the general plan. And so one way that jurisdictions can go ahead and address this is through this programmatic climate action plan strategy. And so that one is one that really fit for us at the time. And so we created this 2020 Community Climate Action Plan to address the build out of the GHG, of the general plan. And so the Climate Action Plan is part of the general plan. It's part of the air quality element. And so what that means is that now that we're updating this plan, we are going to be doing a general plan amendment to the air quality element to go ahead and switch the plans. We will remove this 2020 Climate Action Plan and then replace it with the proposed plan. We may have some minor text amendments and maybe policy changes within the air quality element, but we see them to be minor since our general plan is fairly new and everything should be relevant. So the current climate action plan that we have has only about 26 actions, And at the time, to really address the targets that were being discussed and to show the emission reductions that we had to show at that time, we really had to only kind of demonstrate actions and activities that were already being conducted by the county. And so the county was already planning for different ordinances. We already had different programs in effect. And with all of those, it was really covering that GHG emission reductions that we needed at the time. We knew that things were going to change and things were going to become a little harder. We knew that our emissions were going up, and next time around we were going to have to be a little bit more aggressive. And so we did see this coming. We knew that in 5 years we had to update our climate action plan. And so that is where we are today. This new climate action plan needs to be a little bit more aggressive to really get at GHG emissions. Also, we have new initiatives all around the world that are requiring and asking for more progressive reductions as well. And so our proposed LA County Climate Action Plan will update these following areas. One of the biggest things is that we are trying to reach carbon neutrality by 2045. And so our emissions are being projected to that. Also, this plan will be using greenhouse gas emissions based on a 2015 baseline. And so the inventory that is being used for this plan is from 2015. The last plan used emission inventory from 2010. And so we did get a little bit of an update of what happened between 2010 and 2015. I don't have a slide for you on that today, but our emissions did go up a little bit. And I'll get into that a little bit once we talk about the emission sectors. And so we are projecting our models to reach 2045. As we project, we are also including recent state legislation that would take into consideration future GHG emissions, and I'll go over that as well in a little bit. And so we have 17 new climate strategies, and we have 71 new actions. 2 of those actions are already existing from the current plan, and we'll continue to move forward with those. This plan also sets out a kind of program for us to implement once it's adopted, of how we're going to be able to monitor these actions as well. This here is kind of a lot of data, a list of the different targets that are out there. And so all of this is in our plan as well, but I just wanted to lay it out here because, you know, I've started to receive questions of where are we getting our targets from? Where are these coming from? And so I kind of just wanted to lay out what is out there right now. Regional targets that we have by per SB 375, and they talk about it as a percentage reduction per capita. We also have state targets, and those are talked about in GHG reductions below 1990 levels, and that's where we start to get introduced into having zero carbon resources by 2045. And then most recently, we have our LA County, our county sustainability plan that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in August of 2019. And in that, we have targets that are talking about percentages below 2015 levels. Because at the time the our county sustainability plan was being drafted, they did look at the GHG inventory. That is the GHG inventory that we're using for the climate action plan. And so we are using 2015 emissions. And so at the bottom right, I have the targets for this climate action plan. Within our discussion draft, we have a little bit more details in where it kind of shows that it is aligned with the state targets that are asking for 40% below 1990 levels, and also a comparison to how it is aligned to the reductions that are talking about it in per capita. And so we made sure that we kind of looked at our modeling and kind of made sure that those little points in time, those 2020, 2035, 2030 and such, are really being aligned in these actions that we're putting forth. But before we move on a little bit more, we have with us today Kristen Torres-Pauling from our County Chief Sustainability Office, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the our county sustainability plan. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Ollie. Thanks. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, like Ollie said, this is unusual times, and we really appreciate actually the expanded participation and interest in the workshop today. So I'm here to talk about how the sustainability plan is similar to and also different than the climate action plan. So I'll just overview what the Our County Sustainability Plan is. That's a plan that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in August of last year, so fairly recent. And it is it's a sort of aspirational, long-term regional strategy document. It is not a super detailed, not very specific to unincorporated in most cases. It's really meant to be a regional vision for sustainability that is inclusive of climate, but not specific to climate. And it is also, it mostly deals with areas within the county control. So there are pieces of it that are related to unincorporated, but it's not a wholesale new ordinance, for example. It's not the level of specificity that says everything in the plan that's written down today came to realization on August 2019. Again, sort of big picture strategy document that is both meant to be regional, but also direct action at the county level. So we have this graphic here that explains the idea of using our regional influence as a body that, for example, all of our supervisors, all 5 of the county supervisors sit on the Metro board, but they don't make up the entire Metro board. Whereas the blue area, the direct control section, talks about where we do have control, just county operations, and then from a land use and several other perspectives, the unincorporated area. So there's just some examples of what the sustainability plan is and its scale. Our next slide, please. We had a very intentional definition of sustainability that might be different than other sustainability plans or definitions of sustainability that are traditionally used. We focused on the 3 E's of sustainability: equity, economy, and the environment. And we really dug into defining equity, both from a stakeholder engagement perspective, but also from a content perspective. So our definition of equity, which runs into and informs the climate action plan, I have outlined here. There's actually a whole page dedicated to defining equity in the full draft of the full final sustainability plan. I encourage you to visit it. It's page 13 of the PDF version. It's the end state in which all groups have access to the resources and opportunity necessary to improve the quality of their lives. That's a big, broad statement. So we broke that down into 4 pieces: procedural equity, which is about really process of how something came to be; distributional equity, thinking about where are benefits and burdens located and amongst which populations; structural equity, that's thinking about sort of institutions and how is power put together and held up in institutions like government institutions; and transgenerational equity, thinking about equity between and fairness between generations, which is a really important one, especially for the climate context. Next slide, please. So not showing for me. The sustainability plan is also, like I said, it's not just about climate, it includes climate. So we have 12 high-level goals that I'm just gonna sort of put up on the screen for you and highlight a couple of them. But the main takeaway here, these are the first 6 goals. As you'll see, resilient and healthy community environments, thriving in place, has a whole new meaning now. Buildings and infrastructure that support human health and resilience. So those 2 are good examples of thinking about how the sustainability plan really values and considers the role of public health in sustainability, but also resilience. So one thing Ale will talk about is how the climate action plan is actually tailored to just looking at climate mitigation. That's sort of a function of a couple different things, but we don't want to give the impression the county doesn't think about resilience and adaptation. Sustainability plan has many actions, strategies, and targets related to resilience, and there's a lot of county departments working to realize those. It just happens we have some timing constraints as to why we're just doing mitigation right now. So these goals are meant to illustrate that we're definitely thinking about resilience and adaptation, just not specifically in this particular document of the climate action plan. The next slide, please. These are the next 6 of the 12 sustainability plan goals. And I've highlighted the one that's most relevant for today. A fossil fuel-free LA County. That's goal number 7, if you're reviewing the sustainability plan. And you'll see what Ale sort of illustrated already. Many of our targets that are in the sustainability plan are in the climate action plan draft are directly informed by the sustainability plan goals, which reflect this goal here. Next slide, please. And just to illustrate, these are literally screenshots from the sustainability plan to illustrate the connection between the targets of both for the difference of them being county-wide. So the sustainability plan largely set targets, numeric targets that were county-wide, but in some cases also did establish aspirational targets for the unincorporated areas too, that were for the idea of the unincorporated areas, and then also some in for county operations, but largely they were county-wide. So as we implement the sustainability plan through county action, there will be sort of a tailoring because we need all 88 cities plus the county to come together to achieve these county-wide goals. So in effect, the climate action plan is the county stepping up to say, we think as a county, we need to get to, let's just go with the 2025 target of achieve a 25% reduction in total GHG emissions. That's for, we hope, all 88 cities plus unincorporated counties will get to that goal. But the climate action plan is our initiative to say we're stepping up to the plate. We hope our other jurisdictions will as well. And I think that is what I was planning on covering. Ale, did you want me to cover anything else right now, or should I hand it back to you?
Yeah, I'm looking through some of the questions that we're receiving. And so we're receiving some questions through Zoom, and we have Pat Hachia hot on the keyboard answering some of them. I thought maybe I would just mention a couple of them so, viewers that don't have access to them can also go along with our discussion. There was a really good question. I think, Kristen, you kind of talked to it about it a little bit. And one of the questions was, can you clarify LA County climate planning overall? Is there an overall plan for the entire county, not just the unincorporated areas? And if not, where is the umbrella leadership for the county's climate action planning? And so,
yeah, that's a good question. So the sustainability plan was meant to be a big first step in establishing. Nobody had before said LA County, we're going to reach carbon neutrality by 2050, which is the carbon neutrality goal for the entire county that we propose in the sustainability plan. We as the county don't have authority to require any sort of climate action. by anybody else besides upon ourselves. So there isn't quite a traditional climate action plan that would go across all of the jurisdictions of LA County. That's just sort of simply an issue of governance. There isn't that structure there. But the sustainability plan was meant to set forth a vision, and we plan to work directly with all 88 cities to make that come together, but it's all going to be voluntary. There isn't a structure for that, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah, you know, and also it's good to mention here that really what we're doing is we're gathering all these different types of actions that are happening. And a lot of these actions aren't even ones that the Department of Regional Planning has direct control over. And so regional planning is collaborating with all our other departments, such as Public Works, our Department of Parks and Recreation, our Department of Public Health, because many of those actions are really going to be led by them. Also, we don't have control, direct control over our transportation system. And so we do have a lot of actions to talk about transportation, but this is where we really need the engagement and participation from everyone else in LA County, because we want to know, are these strategies that we're proposing and these actions that we are proposing, are they in line with what everybody is seeing that they're able to do, will like to do, see everything moving or should be moving in that direction. And so everybody, if you could keep that in mind, send us an email with your thoughts, that would be great. All right, thank you. This was Kristen Pauling from the County Chief Sustainability Office who was just speaking to us. Somebody asked if I could.
Oh, yes. Yep. Happy to answer any questions also, as Ale reiterated at the beginning. So I'm going to turn my video off now to keep the bandwidth going. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kristen. So our discussion draft, I'm going to just jump right into it. So our discussion draft, we have organized it. We have organized the greenhouse gas emissions into 5 different sectors. Our current one is also organized a little similarly. And so these here are the 5 sectors that we are looking at. We are looking at transportation. We're talking about on-road and off-road transportation and railways. We're looking at stationary energy, the energy industries, residential buildings, commercial, institutional buildings, manufacturing and construction. We're also looking at fugitive oil and natural gas emissions that are related to that. We are also looking at waste. For waste, we're looking at solid waste disposal. We're looking at biological treatment of solid waste, wastewater treatment. We're looking at also industrial processes and product use. And we are also looking at agriculture, forestry, and other land uses that we'll go into very briefly. But as we do, I think it's time for one of our little surveys. Let's see here. And so if everybody can take a guess on what you think, which sector do you think is the highest emitting GHG sector? And this is only for unincorporated LA County. And so it's interesting because the number is different for the entire region of LA County opposed versus just unincorporated LA County. So go ahead and take your best guess. Which one of these sectors are we getting 62%? Woo, did I just give it away? 62% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So survey says, yes, transportation. You guys are completely correct. And so 62% of our emissions are coming from transportation. And let me go to the next slide. And so this here is a pie chart of what our emissions look like for unincorporated LA County. When you compare it to just entire LA County, the transportation emissions, I think we're around 40%. And so it is a big, significant reduction in comparison. And so remember that map that I showed earlier today, the areas within unincorporated LA County are areas that are more dispersed throughout the LA County. We have more rural areas that may not be served by public transportation. And we also don't have major railways sometimes that go through unincorporated areas as well. Our second biggest sector is the stationary sector and stationary energy sector. That's 30% of the emissions. And so we are really trying to focus on both the transportation and stationary energy sectors. And so bulk of our actions are in these two areas. Although we also have actions for all the other areas as well, even though they're a little smaller. For our agriculture and forestry, when we looked at our emissions, we are also looking at carbon sinks, and we're looking at the potential of our areas such as our significant ecological areas, our SEAs, and the value they have and the carbon that they really hold within the soil and everything they have. And so that's very important to keep in mind, even though that number is small, it is very valuable to us here in LA County. This here is our projection that we are going to be working with. And so the green line that you see, well, it starts with the blue line, right? So we've gone all the way back. We backcasted our greenhouse gas emissions all the way back to 1990. And so you see the line from 1990 at the left side of the screen, and then all of a sudden it turns green. And so what that is the green line is the adjusted business as usual projection. So usually I think it's very common to do business as usual, and that line would just kind of keep going up and up and up. But we recognize that the state of California has passed legislation and in an executive order as well to say that we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and already there are efforts on their way to have those reductions come in the future. And so our projected BAU is an adjusted projected BAU, and it's adjusted to accommodate for that legislation that passed prior to, I believe, September 2019 is what we're including. And so based on that, we should see some type of reduction. The line goes a little bit down, but really what our goal and our target is to hit carbon neutrality by 2045. As you could see, the blue line tries to get us to carbon neutrality by 2045, but we still have about 13% that is not getting us there. Those are residual emissions. And the idea is that as time progresses, technology gets better, we're able to have better accounting of our GHG emissions. Hopefully we will be able to account for those remaining 12, 13% that are left as well. But really we need to focus right there at that point where we start to curve this line down. And so this really could only be done if we have climate action. And so this plan is really focusing on the next 5 years. Similar to the one we have now, we will revise this plan in 5 years and take into consideration all the changes, miscalculations, or hopefully progress in the work that we're all doing out there. And the projections will continue to move and change. To find out how we could really get to 2045 carbon neutrality, we have different mitigation pathways that we started with, and those are really our strategies that we have for our different sectors. And so this model illustrates how different GHG emission mitigation pathways can reduce emissions over time. As you see, some of these reductions will not start to show their reductions right away. And so, for instance, let's see, a good one is the transit-oriented districts strategy. And so that is one strategy where we're saying that we are going to increase the development of communities and designs that are really targeted to active transportation, public transportation, and higher density. And so if we were to implement such type of the development in unincorporated LA County, we would then be able to reduce emissions. And so the model in gray, kind of in the middle, is showing us where that would be. But that really doesn't start to show into about 2030 because it takes time. It takes time. The planning process takes time, and also the construction development takes time. And so we won't necessarily see some of those reductions until later on. So it is very important to keep all of these strategies in mind and try to see how we could start to implement them now. I'll quickly go through some of these. They'll come up in one of our slides later on. But the top green one is really looking at global warming potential type of gases and reducing those. And so those are ones that if we were to reduce those, that would kind of get us that little green line reduction. The blue one is organic waste diversion, right? So Public Works, our Department of Public Works is actively working on how to look at that and also capture emissions that are coming from organic waste as well. We have in yellow EV adoption. It is being modeled as one of the bigger potential emission reductions as well. And this might be kind of a good time to mention one of the questions that came up. And so somebody asked, well, you know, are any of these actions being changed in light of what is happening right now with COVID-19? You know, this is a hard question, I think, because we've been working on this plan for so long and we've been projecting and we have these actions in place, but it is very realistic to kind of look around of what's happening right now and today and start to think of our lifestyles and, you know, will they be different? How will they be different? Right. And so EV adoption is one where if we continue, you know, to use single occupancy vehicles, this would definitely reduce emissions as well. I mentioned a mode shift would be a change. It's something that's minor, but it does contribute. Transit-oriented districts, I did mention as well. We have a sunset strategy that will come up in the later slides, and that's talking about the oil production and use, oil production within LA County region, which is a big topic. I do want to mention that we also have an oil and gas ordinance that is being drafted and worked on by a different team. And so if you do have questions specific to that and the sunset strategy, we could go ahead and take them and make sure that we get the right person to address them and address any concerns that you may have. One of our big strategies and mitigation pathways is to really start to use 100% renewable electricity, renewable energy. Along with that, building decarbonization, so that would help. And the last one is energy efficiency retrofits. It's not possible to just remove what we have and build something new and better. We need to acknowledge that we have a lot of building stock, and some of our building stock is older, but we are able to retrofit it as well. And so with that, if we could go on to question number 3. Do you guys believe that these strategies are reflecting local efforts and what's going on and the direction that we need to take? And so if you could go ahead and just weigh in on what you think. Maybe we need more transportation related actions, more stationary energy related actions, or maybe we need to look at different strategies. These survey questions didn't allow us to enter a kind of an open-ended response, but we would love to hear about what you're doing. And many of you work for different organizations that are also involved in climate action. And so we want to know what you're doing. Are we in line with what you're doing? Do you have suggestions for actions? And so go ahead and you can email those to us at climate@planning.lacounty.gov. And let's see what the results were once they're ready. So 47% of you said, looks like the top strategies which are needed are being included. Okay, well that's comforting to hear. At least half of you feel that we are capturing them, but it seems like we do have room for improvement. So maybe looking at transportation related actions and stationary energy. Thank you, guys. And remember, email me your comments and suggestions. And so renewable energy. How can LA County be served by 100% renewable energy? Are we all getting solar panels at windmills? We're not really getting windmills in the city. And yes, we do prohibit windmills in the North County. And yes, we do prohibit large scale utility solar farms in some areas in the county. And really the intent of that is to be able to preserve biological sensitive areas, like I mentioned, are very unique and valuable SEAs. And so with that said, you know, we come to the question of, you know, how can we get there? What are we doing? What is happening? And so today we have Allison Manos, who is with the Clean Power Alliance, and she is going to fill us in on how LA County is trying to get there.
Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's staying safe during this COVID crisis time and that your families are healthy. So yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview for SPEA. It might be familiar for some of you on the call, but for those that have focused less on energy, you get a little bit of context about why the county started Clean Power Alliance and how we function, and then a little bit about the different strategies that we have right now in order to further advance reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So you can go to the next slide. Sorry, 2 more slides actually, so to the how does it work slide. Yeah, so in a nutshell, so Clean Power Alliance, we're a community choice aggregation utility. And it's a different model than you might be familiar with if you've done advocacy in LA City. We're not a publicly owned utility like DWP, nor an investor-owned utility like Southern California Edison. But community choice aggregation utilities were enabled by the state in 2002 after the whole deregulation crisis as a way to encourage competition. And so we are a governmental agency. We're a joint powers authority representing 31 and soon to be 32 communities in LA and Ventura counties. But the way that we function is that CCA utilities, we buy and we focus, we buy energy and we focus on procurement and generation. And then the investor-owned utility that functions in the areas that we've formed then delivers that energy we buy on our customers' behalf over their transmission lines. So we buy it, they deliver it. That's the simplest way of kind of explaining it. And obviously we have a focus on renewable energy. The little bit of the backstory is that the county started Clean Power Alliance, originally it was called LACE, until it expanded to Ventura counties. And the goal was to expedite many of the sustainability goals that Kristen and Alejandrina just spoke about in terms of what the county and this collective joint powers authority could you know, collectively bring down in terms of energy. You know, there's many strategies. This is by no means the only one, but Clean Power Alliance is playing a role in supporting the overall vision that you know, regional vision that we're all working towards. So next slide. Okay, this is just a handy map of all the communities we serve. It's all available on our website as well, but we are the largest community choice aggregation utility in the state. Many of the ones that started up north before us, they serve between 1 to 6 cities, and we have 31 communities. We're adding the city of Westlake Village this June, and we serve approximately 1 million customers. So it's the scale alone is kind of unprecedented, and it's been a really great opportunity for the county and all the surrounding communities that have participated to make a bigger impact sooner. Next slide. This is just kind of to familiarize people with you know, Clean Power Alliance's timeline thus far. So after this, Gary and other folks in the county started conceptualizing Clean Power Alliance and doing kind of the roadshow to get other cities involved. once Clean Power Alliance formed, we started doing phased enrollment of all the approximately 1 million customers. So we started with unincorporated LA County and the other 2 early adopter cities, South Pass and Rolling Hills Estates, and did their commercial customers. And then last February, all residential customers got enrolled. And then last May, we enrolled the remaining cities' commercial customers. And so right now we're kind of in a phase where while we will be doing some enrollment of Westlake Village customers in June, we're focused more on long-term energy procurement, as well as customer program development and other ways to kind of make these resiliency investments that complement the procurement that we're doing. Next slide. So this is just to show folks who are not familiar, but we offer multiple choices in terms of rates. So community choice aggregation, meaning you can choose to be with us. You could technically choose to go back to Southern California Edison as well. That's one choice. We also offer choices and competitively priced rate options. And so we have 3 options. There are differing levels of renewable energy and price points. So we tried to make sure that there was accessibility for all the different communities in our service territory. So lean power is their 36% renewables option with a 1 to 2% bill savings compared to Southern California Edison's base rates. And a lot of the disadvantaged communities in our service territory chose this in order to minimize bill impacts to customers, but still increase slightly the renewable content that their constituents were receiving. The LA County chose the clean power default. So that's 50% renewable energy at no extra cost compared to Southern California Edison's base rates. And then 100% green power is 100% renewables. That's our other option that we offer. And about 10 communities in our service territory have chosen this as their default rate. And the really great thing that our board adopted, very progressive policy our board adopted, was that if you are a low-income customer who's on a care, FARA, or medical baseline discount already, and you are in one of these communities that chose 100% as their default, that you will be able to receive the 100% renewable energy at no extra cost by being partially subsidized by customers that aren't in the low-income discount program in that community. And so we have given all of the different communities that belong to Clean Power Alliance choices in terms of what default tier to choose. So when I say default tier, I mean that, for example, LA County choosing 50% clean power, it means that everyone who was enrolled, which was an automatic process per state law, was enrolled at the 50% clean power default tier. And then they can choose whether to opt down or opt up as individuals. So you have choices on a community level, and then you have choices on the individual ratepayer level. And so if you were a customer in LA County and you were like, you know what, I really want to show my support for fighting climate change, and I'm willing to pay a 7 to 9% bill premium for the 100% green power rate, I'm going to call the call center and opt up my rate to 100%. You can absolutely do that. And so we wanted to make sure that there's options for everyone. Yeah. And then next slide. So with the next, sorry, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so the last piece about our service that's kind of important, especially for those that do community engagement or base building within your organizations, is that, as I mentioned, the care, FARA, and medical baseline programs are all available to our customers. Though SCE, Southern California Edison, administers the programs, they're available to our customers. And so folks who are already enrolled in these programs before, we honor the discounts. And then if they are qualified but not enrolled, then they should, we actively encourage our customers to sign up. And so that's just something that we want to make sure everybody understands, so that, customers even who are low income can really benefit from Clean Power Alliance. And then I'll just say, just on a high level, I don't have it in my slides, but some of the customer programs and resources that we're looking at right now, we've done an RFI with our member agency communities, as we call the cities and counties that participate in Clean Power Alliance. We've done an RFI to look at resilience and battery storage for critical facilities. So right now we're in conversation with those communities about what would be sites that are prospective sites for battery storage, like fire stations, hospitals, other critical facilities. And then we've also launched our CPA Power Response Program, which is a demand response program using smart technologies like smart thermostats, commercial electric vehicle chargers, and also solar and storage for residential and commercial customers. So we're trying to find complementary offerings that aren't redundant with what Southern California Edison is offering, that also help us further our climate change reduction goals. So yeah. And if you have any more questions, the next slide shows our contact information for our call center and our website, whether you're a customer or just a curious stakeholder.
Thank you, Allison. I do have a couple questions that came in. If you want to just stay on there, I'm going to pull them up. So one of the questions was, how does CPA ensure clean power delivery at night? Is it through a credit system?
Good question. Yeah, and I've gotten that a lot in other customer presentations I've done. So we try to have a diverse portfolio. I didn't really talk about our procurement side of things in this particular presentation, but we have a mix of solar, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal. Obviously, as I mentioned, we're looking at battery storage, not just for the critical facilities, but we actually have an annual request for offers procurement process, and one of the tracks is dedicated to battery storage this year, given the California Public Utilities Commission resource adequacy requirements. So that's going to be a big part of it. Demand response is a big piece of the puzzle with reducing demand at key hours. So I think integrating all these strategies together is key. And then just so folks know, and this is across the energy industry, so we're working on signing long-term power purchase agreements with energy developers to get our energy. And so as we've signed some last year, we're working on negotiating some with the current RFO. As those occur, we also balance our portfolio with short-term energy. And so that's something that all utilities have access to. And so some of those sources are they differ. They're not all necessarily like solar, because we wouldn't have, obviously a balanced portfolio. And, you notice that like our lower tiers don't have as high a rate of renewables because we're buying on the short-term market until we secure more of our portfolio being the long-term clean energy contracts. We don't have 100% clean energy for everybody right now because we're having to, we just started being in operation a year ago. So obviously we're working towards that and we're committed to that, but some of our short-term energy is not renewable as well at the current moment.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few questions, so I'll just move on to the next one. Do customers of CPA pay for the energy CPA procures on behalf of the customer, plus the fee to the IOU for the use of the transmission lines?
Yeah, so I didn't include a slide that I normally do with my customer-focused presentations, but we have a really helpful way of like seeing how this literally reflects on a bill that I'm happy to share with with anyone on this call later. It's also on our website. But basically, Edison issues the billing, and so the generation charge, which is at the very bottom of the bill, is something that our customers, when they previously were only served by Southern California Edison, they paid both for generation and delivery to Edison. Now they're paying us for generation, and then they're paying Edison for the delivery of the energy and another charge, which is called the exit fee, colloquially, for the previous investments Edison made on their behalf. So it's the same charges they would already be paying, but it's a matter of whom they're paying them to. And so generation is what Clean Power Alliance charges for.
Okay, and then if you could send me any of those things, and when I wrap up the workshop comments, I'll be posting some meeting minutes, and then I could include that in there, and so people could access it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question that we have is, how is CPA coordinating with other service providers like LADWP?
It's a good question. We've gotten that question too before. We are working in different service territories. So as people may know on this call, LADWP serves the city of LA, and we serve community choice aggregation utilities serve customers that previously were only investor-owned utility customers. So we don't really have overlap in terms of service territory with any publicly owned utilities, and so we don't necessarily work closely with DWP, but it's not because of any negative reason. It's just they're billing and procuring and maintaining their own clean energy infrastructure, and we're doing the same, and ours is not limited to one particular city. So I guess try to look at it as like apples and oranges in a sense.
Okay. Thank you. Somebody did ask if you could repeat the response to the different programs, but I wanted to mention that this webinar is being video recorded and we will be posting it. So everybody could go back and take a look at it, and also maybe visit Allison's CPA website.
I'll send the link to those programs, the demand response programs, to Alejandra after, and then anyone, you can feel free to email me afterwards with any questions too.
Okay, sounds good. There are a couple other questions on here. Let me see. Some of them maybe I'll send and you could respond to them later, and then we could post all the questions and responses for everybody to go ahead and take a look, even our viewers that are on Facebook as well. Let me take one more. How is rooftop solar expansion figuring into your energy procurement efforts?
Good question. So we currently have a number of customers referred to in the energy industry as net energy metering customers, or NEM. That's what we call solar customers in energy parlance. So we have a number of residential and commercial customers that already had solar previous to enrolling with us. And we offer a net surplus compensation rate that's a little bit higher, 10% higher than Edison. We definitely want to support our customers that have made those investments. We are looking at not necessarily on the individual home level, but in our procurement, we have a distributed energy track along with the utility scale track. And so we're looking at battery storage and how that can, complement existing facilities locally in LA and Ventura counties. We're not looking at utility scale in LA and Ventura, we're looking at the distributed. Like I said, heavily focused on battery storage. We're trying to see what's out there. We're not being prescriptive about it, but we're trying to get a sense of what developers are working on and what feasible proposals may exist. And a lot of it requires good coordinated land use planning. So this particular webinar is very very resonant right now, and with as far as our RFO goes. But yeah, we're getting a better sense of what's out there on the market. So I think that's kind of the approach we're looking at. We don't have like a fit program right now, for example. It's not to say there may not be future programs like that, but at the current moment, we're very focused on long-term procurement.
All right, Allison, do we know, you mentioned batteries, and somebody had a question on batteries. Do we know how long they would be able to provide energy for, a few days or a few weeks?
Yeah, it's kind of been, a perennial question around battery storage. Currently a lot of technologies are for 4 hours. That's not to say that technology won't advance. It has been evolving very quickly. And so keeping pace with the newest trends in just for example, storage technology has been an interesting challenge for us, just because like we want to make sure that we're making obviously. And so I think right now, because the RFO is still open for storage, we're going to see what developers are telling us they know they can provide in terms of the full duration. But, you know, we want to find storage, different types of storage opportunities for different like levels of customer, from the municipal level to the individual residential and small business level as well. So yeah, we're kind of seeing again like what's out there on the market right now through our RFO process.
Thank you very much. I think those were most of them. There might have been one or two, but they've I think been answered online. And so again, thank you, Allison, for joining us. This has been great to hear from CPA and what CPA is doing in LA County, and how this is really connecting to our climate action plan. So thank you for joining us. Again, I want to say this webinar is being recorded, and we are going to try to put all the questions and answers up as well. We will do that on our climate website. And so the link I have at the end of this presentation, and so everybody can take a look at it. And again, we are available for emails and phone calls if anybody wants to further discuss any of these items. And so we'll just move right on to the discussion draft and get into the strategies. So like I mentioned, our LA County Climate Action Plan has 17 strategies. It's organized into 5 different sectors. We do have one additional sector. It's not a greenhouse gas emission sector, but it looks like a sector in the plan. And really what it is, it's a leadership sector. That sector really speaks towards what Kristen was talking about earlier, what the County Chief Sustainability Office is doing and the leadership that they're providing the county and all of our departments. And they're doing a lot of collaboration with the different cities and a lot of these different initiatives. The Department of Regional Planning doesn't have direct control with a lot of the work and actions that are included in this plan. And so it is essential for us to have our Chief Sustainability Office involved in helping us and supporting us, along with coordinating between all the different county departments that are involved. These are big efforts. It takes a lot of coordination, but if we all align ourselves, we can move it forward. And so in this plan, we have 71 different actions that are being proposed. When you go into the plan, you're going to see a couple symbols. When the way we've outlined it is we have first kind of our strategy, and then I'm sorry, let me just go to the next slide. So these are the different sectors and the different actions. So you could take a look at how many actions we have in the different sectors. And as you can see, we have a lot of our actions within the transportation and the stationary energy sectors, because those are our biggest emitters. And so the way the plan is organized is by first outlining the strategy and kind of illustrating the targets to get us there, and then the specific actions under each strategy. And when you look at each action, not all actions can be modeled for greenhouse gas emissions. Some of these actions are what we are calling enabling actions. And so those are actions that are essential to this work, but they don't have direct emissions that can be tracked, or an inventory or a database that we could go to and extract that data from and really count on them. But they are necessary to make the other ones work. Some of these actions are identified as being major actions, and some are being minor actions. And that's really based on kind of the GHG emissions. We've also identified some of these actions and their potential to be to kind of address adaptation strategies. That is something that we haven't talked about yet in this presentation, and the reason is really this climate action plan is focused on mitigation. Out there right now, we have a lot of different climate action plans that are being done by different jurisdictions. Many of them are climate action and adaptation plans. We are doing a climate action plan just for the reduction of GHG emissions. The reason is because this plan is really replacing our existing climate action plan when its goal was to reduce the GHG emissions from the build out from our 2035 general plan. But that said, there is a lot of adaptation planning that we are doing and that we are working on, and you will hear from us as well from the Sustainability Office as well. And so those will be coming. But today we are talking about and focusing on mitigation. Some of these actions do also address adaptation, and so we identified those in the plan. In the plan as well, you'll kind of see a little $ symbol, and that's kind of referring to the cost of some of these. Some of these are very high in cost, and so just trying to identify those. We've also identified the different departments that will be leading these actions, and so you could see who is going to be the point department for each action. And lastly, we've identified some co-benefits that we have for each action. So I'll start and go into transportation. So this is what it looks like. We have, this is one of our first transportation strategies. This strategy is the one to increase transit-oriented districts. And so you could see that we're planning by 2025, which is really our main focus for this plan. Our main focus is the next 5 years. And so we're planning to increase housing built within half a mile of frequent transit. So like high quality transit corridors is kind of what we're talking about. And we are at the same time as doing that, really wanting to reduce our vehicle miles traveled. There was a question that came in a little bit earlier of how this is connecting to VMT, to vehicle miles traveled. And the way we are addressing that and trying to get at it is really looking at our land use and how we plan our land use and looking at that intersection of housing and transit and services, and thoughtfully trying to encourage all of it to be near each other, and so people can live amongst that, not have to commute long ways between that. And then that will bring down our vehicle miles traveled. And so really focusing on increasing density where it is appropriate in our dense areas and not necessarily in rural areas. This does not mean that transit-oriented districts are necessarily going to be pushed on rural areas and rural communities. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we understand and we recognize that LA County is very diverse. We have very different communities, and they all don't function the same way. And that's part of the obstacle and part of the hard part in doing this regional planning. But I believe we can get at it with different strategies and implementing them where they are appropriate. And so as you see, by 2025, we're going to try to increase these transit-oriented communities. We are actively working on TOC type plans. We have recently adopted a few of them and recently created a new section which will be focusing on transit-oriented districts as well. When we get to 2035, then we start to see some emissions from that, and 2045 a little bit more. And so hopefully that is where we're going to progress. And so now time for a little survey talking about transit-oriented districts, talking about kind of these little dense communities and neighborhoods, and well, how would people commute among them, and how do you commute, you know, around where you are? And so we'd like to just kind of ask everybody, what is your favorite mode of transportation? What do you like using, or what would you love to use as you go around your day, running your errands, going to work, going to school? When I first saw this, I chuckled because I love to roller skate. If anybody knows me, I was a roller skater. And so, yeah, I would love to roller skate everywhere if I lived close to everything. And so that would be my choice if I could pick one. Although sometimes the options we have are not our preferred, or maybe they're not the ones that we could really take depending on our lifestyle, our busy lifestyle and work and such. And so we have to take everything into consideration. And so let's see what everybody kind of chose. Walking, very cool. Nice to see that everybody does enjoy walking. I just like to say that, mention that just recently, you know, now that we're home, we are definitely trying to take walks around the block a little bit more. And it's so interesting how you are more aware of everything around you. And you start to look at the buildings and you start to look at everything around you. But then again, I'm a city planner, and so that's what I love to do. It's good to see that people also like to take the train and like to bike. So thank you guys for voting. And so now I want to just throw out there kind of, I know I squeezed everything into this one slide, but I just wanted to put it all in one picture, kind of what our strategies are for the transportation sector, and also what some of these actions are. And so I'll just kind of say some of these out loud, and then I'll go ahead and check in to see if we have any questions regarding transportation. And so like I mentioned, we want to promote transit-oriented communities. You know, really what the focus that we're looking at and trying to measure is increasing the percentage of residents, people who could live and work within the same community. We want to also look into developing a comprehensive parking reform strategy. And so a lot of times we hear about how unincorporated areas of the county are definitely overparked. We have big parking lots that are not used, but then we also have some areas of the county that are underparked. And so we need to take an approach that would work for all, and also consider that if we don't have parking, there needs to be other options available as well. So all of these actions kind of go hand in hand a little bit. We want to try to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips. And so to do that, some of the actions that would be implemented would be to create more connected bikeway networks. And when we start to talk about bikeway networks and pedestrian networks, we do really acknowledge that safety is a big concern. And Public Works is doing a lot of work in this area with their Vision Zero plan and pedestrian active pedestrian plans as well. And so we know that if you don't feel safe or the ride may not be as enjoyable, then it doesn't really support or encourage this. And so it is very important, and this is one of these enabling actions that we really need to increase the enjoyability of these areas. We need to expand our shading over pedestrian networks. We need to expand also the frequency of our transportation system. And LA County does have some shuttles, and so looking to expand those areas. We are looking at installing bus-only lanes and signal prioritization to help with transportation movement. And also, along with us trying to reduce our vehicle miles travel, we are looking to develop a travel demand management ordinance that would guide us in how to be able to move forward in doing that and mitigate some of these impacts that come about from it. And lastly, again, we want to also increase the amount of shading that we have at transit stops. Sometimes when you're waiting for a bus, it might need, especially in the sun in the middle of the summer. And so we want to have the experience be more enjoyable and one that is more realistic of people using it at all times, not only when it's sunny, but also when it's raining as well. Another strategy that we have is to institutionalize low carbon transportation. And so here we do have some ability to directly affect this by encouraging, installing EV chargers at county facilities. And so that is something that the county has actively been doing, is trying to install them, and hopefully we will be able to continue. I know there's been discussions of, you know, county park facilities as well, which are all throughout LA County. We want to try to electrify county bus fleet and shuttles as well, and so that is another way where we could directly affect it. And so we also want to accelerate freight decarbonization through encouraging these different technologies and really looking at them for the corridors that are coming through unincorporated LA County. And then that's one area that we could try to influence as well. And then lastly, explore zero emission technologies for off-road vehicles and equipment. And so that is something that we could do through partnering through with different other entities. So with that, let me just do a quick little check on the Q&A to see if there are any transportation related questions. If not, then I will move on. Okay, I will go ahead and move on with our next slide. So with that, we wanted to throw in something a little fun. You guys teleworking? Aren't we all right now, right? So let us know, how is it going? I'm pretty sure everybody is teleworking right now. And it's kind of a crazy time right now. Ideally, if you were teleworking, it's kind of not like how it is right now, childcare, and you usually have a plan for other things. So it's really interesting for that. So let's see what our survey results show. Of course. There was a follow-up question that we weren't able to kind of include. So we were wondering how efficient and effective everybody is while you were teleworking. Usually you don't have all this noise in the background, but I wonder if through doing this, some of us are finding that we could be very efficient, that the technology that we have is able to support us. I think it's a great success to hold this workshop in such a manner, and that we've now tripled, almost quadrupled the reach that we were originally going to have. And so, oh, there we go. There is the question. Thank you, Iris. So let us know how your experience is so far. Has it been better than it would have been in the office, or are you really not getting anything done and you can't wait to go back into the office? Let's see what everybody says. This is the one that I'm so interested about and hear from all around. All right, good to hear that at least 50% of us are as effective teleworking as being in the office. So that sounds good. It means that work is continuing to move forward at the moment. And so, oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. 38% of us are being more effective. No, I read that wrong, right, okay. Half of us are being as effective, which is great. 30% of us are being more effective, that's awesome. And 14% of us are getting nothing done. But you know what, aside from distractions, it's understandable. Okay, so next sector. Let's talk a little bit about stationary energy. This here is one of our strategies. And it's a strategy where we're talking about increasing solar panels. And so the idea is to, in the next 5 years, really increase solar panels on 20% of our commercial buildings that are over 50,000 square feet, and at least 10% of single-family residential buildings. Again, these targets and these emissions that we're talking about unincorporated LA County. And so our stock may look a little bit different than other cities. And so this is one that kind of realistically gets us at some type of reduction. And so we have the amount listed there. The idea is over time that is going to increase. And then by 2045, hopefully we'll get to 60% of our commercial buildings and at least half of our single family residential buildings as well. And so similar to our transportation sector, I've included all of our actions here for stationary energy. For stationary energy, we are looking to decarbonize building energy use. And so to do that, we want to adopt an energy and water efficiency ordinance, which would be an effort that would be done by Public Works and also with regional planning's assistance as necessary in all of that. Adopt building code requirements for electric, water, and space heating. We acknowledge that there may be some obstacles out there that don't allow us to move forward with some of these things that we may be wanting to do right now. We want to adopt Cal Green Tier 1 green building standards and also look at, excuse me, the tier 2 standards and see which ones are appropriate for us to include there as well. We want to incentivize net zero energy residential and commercial building through a streamlined development review. And so we don't really know what that may look like right now, but the hopes is that we could somehow ensure that we are able to move these types of projects along and clear any roadblocks or obstacles that we may have in our permitting process, if there are any. We want to continue to collaborate with City of LA and other members of the Building Decarbonization Coalition to develop building energy and emission performance standards. And so this again speaks to us collaborating with other cities within LA County, because we are a big region, and if we are in line, then we could move forward together. We want to also promote water conservation. We don't have a separate water sector. GHG emissions that are coming from water are kind of into the stationary energy sector. They fit better in this sector and kind of reflect the use of energy in different ways. So we want to be able to promote the use of recycled water and gray water to be used in agricultural industrial processes. And also similar to our energy and water efficiency ordinance, develop a net zero water ordinance for new development. And so that would again be something that would live more in the Public Works Department as well. We want to look again at any barriers that we may have in retrofitting the existing stock that we have for on-site gray water recycling systems. Other strategies that kind of speak to what Allison presented to us earlier today was we want to increase our energy resilience. And so to do this, we want to, we're thinking that we could develop a publicly accessible community energy map that identifies opportunities for deploying this distributed energy resource and looking at microgrids to improve energy resilience, especially in disadvantaged communities throughout unincorporated LA County. And so like Allison was mentioning, I'm not sure if she mentioned this one, partnering with CPA, with the Clean Power Alliance to promote these programs and their installation in incorporated areas. And like I mentioned before, we do have the Santa Monica Mountains in our unincorporated area. That is a community that we serve and that we plan for. And so we do need to make sure that we're planning for these wildfire-prone communities. And so that is very important. We have an action that speaks to that. We want to increase renewable energy. And so again, pretty much what Allison was talking to us about, encouraging 100% renewable energy and a mix, and looking at 2025 and how we could get there by increasing solar panels, and especially looking at how we could also have them within multifamily units. And one of our last actions that we have is to really look at solar installation on buildings, but also over parking lots. I know we start to see that at schools everywhere that they're using their parking lots. Our Department of Public Works has installed wonderful solar panels over their parking lot. And so we're starting to see a lot of benefits from that as well. So I am going to take a look at our questions really quick and see if there's something that I could jump on that I could answer. And so one of the questions that we have is, we need more EV charging infrastructure. What is taking so long? Yes, we do need EV charging infrastructure. It is something that we are actively working on. I believe we do have some EV chargers being ready to be installed, but it's a matter of identifying the locations and also being able to cover the cost to have them installed, because some of them are a little high. And so that is something that we are working on. I see that Kristen is back on the mic. I don't know, Kristen, if you heard this question, you may have.
Yeah.
On this one.
Yeah, so the sustainability plan did establish goals for county facilities and a regional target for EV infrastructure. It like Ali says, it really does come down to needing some capital to make the changes, because it depends on it's very site specific as to the level of cost that it takes to install UV infrastructure. But the county budget, before all this happened, there was a substantial request for our internal services department in the millions of dollars to advance EV infrastructure at county facilities. So that does, would include places like libraries and sheriff stations and publicly accessible places. Everything is up in the air right now. Yeah, we're beginning to sort of turn the tide of recognizing that it requires substantial investment. So hopefully that you'll start seeing some changes within the next fiscal year at county facilities on that.
Thank you, Kristen. Another question that came in is, how do you propose to get diesel trucks off the road? Significant impact on GHG and air quality, especially in low-income communities living near freeways. No electric options. And so I believe that we do have one of our actions speaking to that. Kristen, did you want to say something towards this question?
Yeah, sure. I just say first that there actually are pilot and demonstration vehicles on the road today that that are electric. There are also other fuel types that are substantially reducing in diesel. So there are electric options to current diesel models. They're definitely, the commercial scale is a different question, but technically, yes, there actually are vehicles out there today. The county is part of the Transportation Electrification Partnership, and that is an unprecedented partnership between state, regional entities, and local governments that's really focused on the year 2028 and getting substantial investments out on the road on transportation electrification. And the reason the county actually joined was really out of the leadership of Supervisor Janice Hahn and her interest in radically changing the 710 corridor to mitigate get away from what you might call the county's worst environmental justice issue of the 710 corridor and air quality issues for the over 90% communities of color that live along the 710. That's where I was born, so this is a personal issue for me as well. So that's one of our main avenues is working together with agencies and in a sort of really unprecedented fashion, and the county's interest is very much the 710, and that's why we're focused there.
Hmm. Thank you, Kristen. I wanted to also highlight, we do have an action. It's action T29, and it's looking for Public Works to be the lead in implementing. And really what it is it's saying to require, whenever feasible, the use of zero emission and near zero emission construction, agriculture, and manufacturing equipment for county projects. And so when we are able to influence the machinery, the technology and the equipment that we are using, we are trying to at least use the better ones that we can through the county.
Yes, great point.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions waiting for me to be answered. I believe many of questions have been answered already, and so we'll go ahead and we will post those. One just came in. And so let me see, it's a little technical. So Kristen, let me see, I think it's speaking to something that you said. Let me read it and see if it's something we could possibly answer right now. It is saying hydrogen fuel cell trucks are also zero emission and are currently in use today, including a lot of pilots and active development by both of the ports. As Kristen stated, since the county is including battery electric trucks, despite the technology on only being in pilot state, will the county also be considering hydrogen fuel cell tech?
Sure, that's why I mentioned other fuel types. I didn't say that there was only electric alternative pilots out there. And yes, so hydrogen is another fuel type that counts as zero carbon emissions. As Alay mentioned, the climate action plan really focuses on county unincorporated, and as a mobile source, you know, we're not necessarily saying we're going to require the purchase of any type of fuel vehicle in the climate action plan context. So really what we can do, as Alay said, is talk about the options for sort of county operations within. Mobile sources are, you know, we don't regulate mobile sources. That's a choice. That's something that's handled at the state level. So yes, so you definitely agree that hydrogen models already exist. And it's just sort of a matter of matching our level of governance with what can be done in the context of the climate action plan.
Thank you, Kristen. And so with that, again, we'll post some of these questions that we've received. And I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to jump into now our waste sector and just talk briefly on that. So for our waste sector, this is an example of one of the strategies that we have. And for the waste sector, we don't have everything, all the GHG emissions modeled. So they may not be able to show you a reduction. And so for instance, that's the case for the one I have on the screen right now. But really what we're wanting to do is reduce organic waste in our landfills. And we want to reduce our methane emissions that are kind of coming from them as well. And so the hopes would be that by 2025, we'll get a reduction of 30% from a 2017 baseline, and in 2035, bump that up to 45%, and then 2045 to 60%. And so with that, I'll jump into some of the actions that we have. For the waste sector, we want to introduce incentive-based systems to reduce waste, and so that's one of the strategies. Some ways that we could do that is by identifying best practice waste pricing programs to reduce waste generation, and also incentivize the development of local upcycling and recycling markets and quality recycled materials. We also want to be able to generate widespread support for sustainable waste future, again, through collaboration with different stakeholders in the county, and also by increasing the diversion requirements from the county for construction and demolition debris. And so we may be able to do that through an ordinance, through Public Works. And one of the last strategies that we have is to reduce and divert organic waste. And some of the ideas that have come about, and some of these, you know, like I mentioned before, are from the sustainability plan. And so we have received some of these through those workshops that the sustainability plan was doing last year, or maybe a year and a half ago now. And so one of those actions are enhance and expand the county's existing food donation and redistribution program. So we not only reduce our waste, but we are also able to take some of those resources and take them to communities that may need them. We could also collaborate with waste haulers to develop organic collection and diversion programs in unincorporated communities. So these waste haulers that are serving our communities, I know we've heard a lot of different comments and feedback. Different communities are being served in different ways and have different needs. And so really taking a chance and an opportunity to look at those situations and looking at how we can improve them as well. And also lastly, maximizing organic diversion through neighborhood and regional composting and anaerobic digestion. And so I know there are different things that we can do regarding that. And so we have a little question we wanted to ask everybody about your organic waste. What strategies are you using to reduce your organic waste? You know, are you in unincorporated LA County and your organic waste is being picked up? Is your organic waste being picked up by your waste hauler, but you're within one of the cities or just somewhere else? That'd be interesting to know. And or do you compost your own organics, which you can as well? And I would say that would maybe even include if you're having a third party compost it yourself for the purposes of this survey. Or is this hopefully making you think and say, oh, you know, maybe I need to look into what it is that I can do to contribute to this. So we'll take a moment and we will see what our Zoom viewers have to say. And then at the end of all this, we'll compile this survey results with the ones from the SurveyMonkey link that was sent out for the Facebook Live viewers. And then we could go ahead and post what everybody votes for and see what is kind of going on in LA County. Survey says 42% compost your own organics. That is very cool. Thank you for doing that, guys. That is wonderful. 24% get their organics picked up, and 32%, I'm glad we are inspiring you to find out what you could do. I know we don't have many viewers that are actually within unincorporated LA County. So maybe that's why only 3% of unincorporated LA County is being, their organics are being picked up. So with that, I'm going to jump to one of our less emitting sectors, and so I'll just quickly go through these. And so that this is our industrial process and product use sector. And here again, what we're trying to target is we're trying to target those global warming potential gases that are still out there that we know we can reduce, remove, replace with something else. And so some of these actions that are talking to that is really partnering with utilities to incentivize equipment replacement that phases out the use of these gases. And so it's a combination of being able to use some of the ability to directly affect these uses and these businesses, which we may not have much of, and kind of also just having the information out there and available so everybody also continues to learn more about it and know what they can do for themselves. Another strategy we want to do is to promote clean manufacturing processes. And so this is something that we could do through leading and supporting a regional green chemistry clean manufacturing incubator that facilitates linkages between developing businesses and workforce development efforts for target populations. And so we don't have many actions for this sector, but like I mentioned, this is one in where the emissions that we're getting are fairly small compared to our transportation and stationary. And so because this plan is really targeting the next 5 years and the actions that we need to start working on now, we are focusing on transportation and stationary energy and wanting to affect those areas the quickest. And so our last sector is the agriculture, forestry, and other land use sector. This is one that, again, the emissions are fairly low. They're more, also we have kind of that carbon sink effect that happens with these emissions. But also this is kind of one of the funner ones that we all tend to identify because it's really talking about nature and it's talking about everything around us. And here in LA County, we all love to be outside, and I know we all appreciate it, as we should, right? We're one of the hot biological hotspots in the world. And so we are very fortunate to have that around us. We want to make sure that we continue to protect it and preserve it, but also balance the need for us to continue to grow in this region as well. And so that is a tricky balance. One of the strategies that we want to do in this is really to conserve forests and working lands. And so what we're saying is by 2025 to restore 2,000 acres of forest land and increase urban tree canopy cover by 10%. And then by 2035, increase it by 15%, and by 2045, increase it by 20% would be a goal. And so to outline kind of all the actions that are within this sector, we have 2 strategies in this sector. And so one is the one that I just mentioned right now. Some of the actions that we want to do to accomplish that strategy is to support the preservation of agricultural and working lands. And, you know, we're also including rangelands, which we do have some, and we want to make sure we restore forest lands by limiting the conversion of these lands to residential or other uses through different tools. There are different things that we may be able to do. One of them is start to create agricultural easements in these areas, and especially targeting areas that are high climate hazard areas and are significant ecological areas. And so this is also talking to that adaptation potential that we have. This sector very much speaks to adaptation as well. And so we are going to be doing a lot of work in this area, starting with planning. For instance, we want to create and implement a community-informed urban forest management plan. And so that would be a big effort that would help us organize and identify our resources and strategies of how we can move forward with this. We want to also continue to expand county tree planting to increase the urban forest in both the public right-of-way and private property. I know there is a lot of work out there right now and a lot of different efforts being done. We want to make sure that we are moving those programs forward and continue to plant trees. That increases our shade. That also will help towards reducing kind of greenhouse gases by creating these little carbon sinks. Another strategy is to promote regenerative agricultural practices. And so this is really speaking to kind of our soil and our land, and you know, saying that we acknowledge that what we have is something that we need to continue to preserve. Once we start to move and disturb the soil, we see that there is loss of carbon, and it may not work the same. And so we want to do things like reducing the use of synthetic fertilizers through precision agriculture and promote efficient use of compost and manure. And we also want to be able to create fallow and field resting incentives to reduce bare fallow land by adding cover crops and promoting soil quality, and to limit the risk of erosion and pollutant runoff as well. And so some of those are some of our actions. And so with that, I'm going to go to our next slide, which is a survey. It's a little tree planting survey. And so that'll come up. Originally, when and what we want to ask is, you know, what are some of the equity implications that kind of come up when we start to talk about increasing our urban tree canopy? We know, we see it, that in some of our disadvantaged communities, there isn't a big tree cover. They're bare of trees. And so that is something that we have, an inequality that we have to kind of try to undo and actively try to change. But also, you know, once we start to plant trees in new neighborhoods, that tree needs to be maintained. And so who is the one to maintain that? And somebody has to take on the burden of that as well. And so if everybody could kind of weigh in what they think. And I just wanted to mention, originally when we were planning this workshop, we were going to have also free trees be given out, usually for a lot of our outreach events. We have trees. We have a nursery that the fire department maintains. And so they always have trees available. They have oak trees. They have a lot of native trees. If you guys are looking for trees, you could go ahead and send us an email. We'll connect you. We've been contacted by different organizations who want to put on an event and do tree planting. And so that is something that we could help you with. I'm not sure how and what is happening right now, but you know, I'm sure we could still get trees out there. So survey says, yes, so 60% of you do acknowledge all of the above. Yes, we definitely need to increase our urban tree canopy in our disadvantaged communities. Not only, you know, like we're talking about air quality, we're talking about shading. In many of these disadvantaged communities, we also have the effects of the heat island effect. And so trees really help us with that. There are so many different benefits and co-benefits and adaptation benefits that come about when we really start talking about planting trees. And so we want to make sure we include that in the climate action plan. Let us know if you guys are doing anything and what you're doing, and hopefully we could share those fun activities with everybody else. And now our last sector that I wanted to highlight, it comes up as our first sector within our climate action plan. Even though I chose to talk about it at the end, it really is one that should be at the forefront of it all, and that's climate leadership. And again, that's really what Kristen was talking about in the Our County Sustainability Plan, and kind of some of the work that's coming out of that plan. And so this year is just one strategy to reduce GHG emissions by 25% below 2015 levels. These are our targets for our climate action plan. To be able to do that, one of the strategies that we have is, this sunset strategy, that even though I'm including it on this slide and I have it on here, it really isn't the focus of today's presentation. We have a different team that is working on this. And so if you are interested, we could go ahead and send you their contact information and connect you with them. But also, let me go to the next slide. This is a list of all the actions. And so what I wanted to mention about that is that Kristen and her team, they're really working in trying to collaborate with other cities and jurisdictions and sharing information. The idea is for LA County to be able to create templates as we can for things that we've been able to move forward with first, and be able to share those and hold workshops and share information as well. And so there will be collaboration with the city of LA and other cities to develop this sunset strategy, and really wanting to prioritize this proportionately affected communities is the intent. And again, they want to collaborate with City of LA and others to develop a just transition kind of program, making sure everybody is moving together forward. Also creating a volunteer leadership initiative and public-private partnership between the county and leaders in the community in private, institutional, and nonprofit sectors. Pretty much everybody who's committed and can really encourage carbon neutrality. And lastly, we, the county and regional planning is very active in this, in obtaining a transformative climate communities implementation grant, which I don't have an update on, but if Kristen does, then she could go ahead and let us know. Okay.
No particular update on that right now. We are fighting to keep the funding available in the governor's budget process. So that's still a moving piece, but something we're very interested in to continue to pursue.
Thank you, Kristen. And so that kind of wraps up all the sectors on our emissions that we have. Again, take a look at our climate action plan and take a look at the strategies. We are collecting comments. We're available to talk with you, talk through everything. And so I wanted to just give a little summary of some of the outreach that we've been doing. This project, it really started in 2018 when the County Sustainability Office started gathering the GHG inventory. After that, then in 2019, we really started to prepare for revising this draft, climate action plan and creating the discussion draft that we have. And so we started last summer by going out into the public. We were able to go to 33 different LA County parks and really reach, just our everyday county residents through tabling events. And that was very nice, and trying to communicate and let them know what it is that the county is doing and how this affects them, and try to hear any questions that they may have. We also held a stakeholder workshop in November. And so today is our second one, which is an online webinar. We are looking into having maybe future webinars if there is interest, and specifically also if there is interest, what would you like to further discuss? We may be able to put something like this on for specific organizations that want to have discussions as well. And so that's out there. I was able to go to some town council meetings. For those of you who are not familiar with these types of organizations, in LA County, we have over, I don't even know how many different communities, over 50 communities, more than that. And many of these communities have their own town council, and it's kind of a group elected by the community that comes together, that kind of acts like a smaller board that vets some of these planning efforts that we're doing. And so we're always trying to be in communication with them. And so I tried to reach out to all of them. I was not able to present to all of them. I was able to only present to about 4 of them. But the plan was to continue to present to you town councils. And so now with this, maybe we could do it online. I'll be reaching out to you, and if you could also contact me, and then we could coordinate something. I also wanted to mention that 31 of these actions are from our county sustainability plan. So we were able to take a look at all the comments that were received when they were going through their kind of public outreach, and they had various workshops and events. And we have been able to look at all the comments and take those into consideration as well. And so the public outreach that we're doing is a little bit more than just the focused one that we're doing right now and today. It's taking into consideration comments that we've been receiving since 2019. We are also trying to engage the youth. And so if you are a teacher out there, and if this is something that speaks to maybe a topic or a class that you're doing, maybe this is a new opportunity since we're online to present this type of information to your students. We're available. Please reach out and let me know. We're very open to that. And so with that, I wanted to also share our timeline. We released our discussion draft on March 5th. We have extended the comment period to April 30th to allow for more comments. Today's webinar is just a webinar with information. This is not any type of public hearing forum. This was not an event to take public comments, to take directly to the commission. Although all the comments that we are receiving, they will be logged, they will be submitted to the Regional Planning Commission, and then later to the Board of Supervisors as this project goes by. This project will require for it to be held before the Regional Planning Commission, which we are hoping will happen sometime in July. And then after that, then it would go to the Board of Supervisors for their approval, and hopefully that could happen in August or September. We don't know if these timelines are going to be delayed. Really, the plan is to have this plan adopted prior to the end of 2020. We want it to be in effect for 2021, because the current climate action plan that we have will be no longer used. It will expire. And so some of the streamlining benefits that we get from having a programmatic climate action plan, we may not have those available for private development to use them. And so it is essential that we update our climate action plan and have something in place to be able to continue the way we're able to assess impacts to greenhouse gas emissions through our private development. And so with that said, I know some of you have seen the picture to the right, which is a butterfly. I'm not saying what type of butterfly, but it's a butterfly. And it's included in our plan. And well, the reason why we have a butterfly now everywhere is because we chose the monarch butterfly to be our mascot. And so that is our climate action plan mascot. We had a little survey earlier, and we had 3 different ones, and we had everybody kind of pick one, and the monarch butterfly won. But I received an email from someone telling me, oh my gosh, that picture that you have is actually not a monarch butterfly. It's a different type of butterfly. It's a Viceroy butterfly. And so thank you for letting us know. And so we wanted to do a quick little survey to kind of, play with everybody and see if you could spot the imposter. One of these is a monarch butterfly, and another one is a Viceroy butterfly. And so if everybody could go ahead and vote, and then I'll tell you what the distinguishing factor is if you can't see it already. And so survey says the monarch butterfly is correct. You guys are correct. It's the one on the right. And so you could tell because of the dark line between the wings, but they are very similar. The Viceroy butterfly is a little smaller, and it lives more in swampy and wetland type areas, which is not really what LA County has much of. And so, yes, we don't really have Viceroy, I believe, but somebody may correct me with that. And then we have one last kind of survey question, and just to see, well, where do you guys think the monarch butterfly is today? Take a guess. Where are monarch butterflies kind of in their path of travel right now? And survey says, let's see what everybody thinks. Southern California, yes. So yeah, so the monarch butterflies should be passing through California. I believe they were leaving Mexico and passing through California right now. So that's kind of where our mascot is at. And so with that, guys, I want to thank everybody. Not only our participants that are on there, but also all of the staff that really helped, and all my colleagues that helped put this on. This was a really big effort. So really big special thanks to Iris Chi, which is kind of the background guru putting all of this together, and Pat, who was busy typing all the answers, and Irene, who was looking at Facebook Live, and especially our panelists, Kristen and Allison. Thank you for all of your help in putting this on. This was very exciting to do. I hope everybody learned something new, was encouraged to take action, and has some ideas and suggestions for us. So please send us your email ideas and support to our email address. I want to tell you guys that right now we don't have access to our buildings, and so we don't have access to our mail. We're not able to receive mail, and so we could only really communicate through a digital format. And you know, once this goes into the public hearing phase, we are going to look into, you know, how this will happen to make sure we're legally doing this the right way. We do not want to skirt the process in any way. If anything, we're hoping that this creates more engagement, and we're able to hear from more people. And so send your comments to us by April 30th. You have my email, you have our website, and follow us on any of the social media platforms. Thank you, guys. Have a good Wednesday.